Thank you for tuning into the Leroy Brown Talk Show. As always, it's your host, Addison Leroy Brown. Today we're going to be discussing South Carolina football, and a lot of you fans, to include myself, were pretty happy with the UGA win. And I'm going to go a little bit into what to expect from Florida, and I'm probably going to, as always, end up breaking some fans' heart with some of the things that I have to say about the upcoming match between the Florida Gators. But first, I want to talk about Saturday's game. All South Carolina fans dislike early Saturday mornings that lead in noon kickoffs under the hot Columbia sun, the football team doesn't mind the time slot on game day. South Carolina will play its third noon game of the season and the 14th in 3.5 seasons under head coach Will Muschamp. The Gamecocks are 10-3 in those contests, 1-1 in 2016, 3-0 in 2017, 4-2 in 2018, 2-0 in 2019, and 6-0 at Williams-Brice Stadium. 5 of those 10 wins are against SEC teams, another against Michigan. Alarm clocks go off early in the morning during the week, so there is no issue hearing the chiming phones or the cell phones ringing to get up early. Javon Kinlaw went on to say, "It's not new to us. I'm up at 6 o'clock every day. We like it like that. We will like it no matter what time it is, honestly. Man, as long as we win, I don't think the time really matters to our fans." Ernest Jones went on to say, "I like playing a noon game. You wake up, it's ball time. The 3:30 games, you get a late start. We practice early in the morning. Noon games are good with us. We're up and we're ready to go. While the fans get to tailgate longer for an afternoon game and night games, players are restricted to hotel rooms and conference rooms all day. You don't have to hang out around the hotel all day, and compared to at night," senior linebacker TJ Brunson said, "We practice in the mornings. A lot of guys practice in the afternoon. It takes them time to wake up and get ready for the noon games." The Gators are 6-1, 3-1, and are coming off a back-to-back top 10 games at 3:30 p.m. The matchup against Auburn and at a 7 p.m. local time kickoff at LSU. Florida has played one noon game this season back on September 21st against Tennessee, a 34-3 victory. The Gators are 6-0 in noon games over their past 2 seasons. Now, let's dive in a little bit more into the South Carolina predictions and Florida predictions. The game is obviously Saturday on the 19th at 12 Eastern Standard Time at Williams-Brice Stadium. And, if I was a betting man, I'll go ahead and say that Florida's going to come out and win this one. And before, we really dive into this, I want the South Carolina fans, before you jump down my neck and send me a whole bunch of emails to Leroy Brown Talk Show, you need to understand that against Georgia, although we did win in double overtime, and we had 3 opportunities with a kicker who obviously wasn't that well to take the win, it was more Georgia just didn't show up. And South Carolina, anybody who's been a South Carolina fan, we've played games where we should have won, i.e. the Citadel, and we just didn't show up because our players, along with our coaches, went in the mindset of we really don't need to prepare, and we lost those games. The one takeaway that I had from the Georgia game, other than being happy that we won, was this: our offense didn't move the ball. And, Jake Fromm showed a lot of his mistakes. Now, this was the first time that South Carolina's defense showed up all year. I mean, we were putting pressure on the quarterback. We had 3 takeaways with interceptions. We were dominating on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive-wise, though, we couldn't move the ball. And, for anybody that's like, "Oh, well, the backup of Florensky was really good." Was he? How many times did we get started and then go nowhere under the backup? This is why I think Florida will win. It's sort of a loss with the LSU. Was the offense was hanging shot for around 50 minutes, and it had its chance to end and make it even closer. than a 42-28 final score. Quarterback Kyle Trask is not only playing fiercely, but he's making the gutsiest big throws that don't seem to be there. Time and time again against LSU was about to get off the field, only Trask could keep things moving on his way to 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. South Carolina's secondary might have come through in a big way last week against Georgia. At least Israel Mukumu did with his 3 picks. But the pass defense hasn't been anything special so far. And, I've said that several times. We haven't been that impressive. Alabama and North Carolina were able to push the ball deep. Missouri's Kelly Bryant was able to was able to dunk, and Trask would have been able to take away the Gamecocks give him. On the other side, how will University of South Carolina's Ryan Holinsky's knee perform? He did return to practice on Tuesday this week. He is expected to make the game on Saturday and start the game on Saturday. But there's a lot of questions there. Is he going to be timid in the pocket? Is he going to throw away a ball anytime he gets pressure on him in fear of hurting his knee even more? He left the game against the Bulldogs and couldn't go late, but it was apparently a sprain. Now he has to deal with the Florida pass rush that might be banged up. Jonathan Greenard and Jadari Zunga are the keys to the defensive front. When they're healthy but can still bring the heat, the Gators aren't going to go without a sack for a second week in a row. It's just not going to happen. And, for most of my South Carolina fans out there, they're going to say, well, what about South Carolina's chances? Well, we'll talk about that. Georgia might have been the best offensive line in the country, at least one of the most talented. And South Carolina, at its very beginning, was just owning the Georgia offensive line. Javon Kinlaw and company have been consistent all season. Javon Kinlaw is a great football player. This might not be a spectacular line that comes up with sacks and big plays and bunches, but it keeps on coming. The Gators' offensive line has been mediocre at best this year, but nothing too special. It'll give up plays behind the line. It'll get a ground game going for a bit, but it's more serviceable and sensational. That's part of the reason why Florida has such a big turnover issue, giving it away 14 times on the season and 3 more and more than 3 times per game. As Jake Fromm, what happens when South Carolina starts to come up with takeaways? Go ahead and ask him, because Georgia lost that game because of the pressure they put on Jake Fromm. But this was the first time we saw the defense. And, I don't want to sound too negative, but we have the Tar Heels. We didn't impress. And, we've had the games this year that, we've come up empty-handed. It all depends on what team shows up. If the Florida team that played Auburn shows up, you're not going to win. If the Florida team that played LSU shows up, you might have a chance. If the Gamecocks are the Gamecocks as of late, we're going to have problems. Both teams are going to come in a bit beaten up after emotional physical games last week, but to push force narrative, the Gamecocks are coming home after a win. The Gators are coming off of dates with Auburn and LSU, the off week coming right after this week. The Gamecocks need this to be sloppy. They really do. They need the Gators to just not want to show up. Because if the Florida Gators come into Williams-Brice mad about the fact that they lost to LSU, mad at the fact that, they went down in the rankings, they come out they have something to prove and show, it's going to be a brutal day for South Carolina. What's going to happen? Loss in the win over Georgia is the South Carolina offense didn't really work. And I've already said that. They did not show up. The passing game couldn't generate anything big downfield. The team gained fewer than 300 yards, and it took a brilliant game from the defense to get it done. The only reason you won against Georgia was the defense. Coming off an embarrassment against LSU, Joe Burrow, get ready for the NFL talented Gator secondary to rise up and control the game throughout. Don't expect any big shots downfield from South Carolina. Florida will be tough, methodically, and it will own the clock and its tempo after the first half. The UFC offense that's been held to under 300 yards 3 times this year will struggle to get there again. And if you go into this game thinking that, South Carolina's going to dominate, I'm telling you right now, no one in their right mind has South Carolina beating Florida. And, if you look at what the Las Vegas poll is, the Las Vegas poll that came out this evening, Florida versus South Carolina prediction line, Florida is, supposed to come out with a 27 point win over South Carolina at 17. Bet on UF versus USC with Bet MGM for the last line. I honestly don't think it's going to be 27-17. I think it's going to be somewhere close to 31 Florida and South Carolina maybe at 10. I don't see us getting 2 touchdowns. I see us getting maybe 1 touchdown and a field goal. And I think if Will Muschamp uses that kicker a lot, you're going to sit there and find yourself going, why is he still our kicker? Former South Carolina defensive end Devon Taylor was taken on the first day of the XFL draft on Tuesday. The Tampa Bay Vipers selected Taylor with the final pick in the defensive front 7 portion of the XFL draft. Quarterback skill players and offensive linemen also were selected Tuesday. The rest of the players were selected on Wednesday. The 6'8" Taylor was the 4th round selection by the Detroit Lions in 2013. Played 5 seasons in the NFL with the Lions and New York Giants. He had 94 tackles, 15 sacks in his NFL career. Taylor, a standout in Buford High School, played with Birmingham and now defunct Alliance of the American Football earlier this year. At USC, he had 161 tackles, 18.5 sacks for the South Carolina Gamecocks from 2008 to 2012. The biggest thing that I want to talk about is if you really do think that the Gamecocks come out on top on this one, I just don't see it. And South Carolina's hoping that its noon kickoff against the number 9 Florida team is going to be its advantage. I just don't see it. And the big spur went on to write that Muschamp had said, I don't need to do this, but I'm going to challenge our fans. Be here early, be here loud, make a difference for us to help us and the football team. It creates a huge home field advantage. I certainly appreciate them and the enthusiasm they bring to our football team. When they're excited, we're excited. Okay, well, that's the case, Muschamp. Where were you at when we played the Tar Heels? Because that Panther Stadium was mostly Carolina fans, and you didn't get anything done. So, I appreciate that you're doing the hoorah speech for your Carolina fans, but I just don't see it. South Carolina football team returned to practice field on Tuesday, which I spoke about earlier. Ryan Helinski, who suffered a left knee injury in the last game, was out. Head coach Will Muschamp, in his 4th year leading the program, said on Tuesday that he expects Helinski to be ready and play for the Gamecocks on Saturday. Last night, when he held his Meet the Press meeting, he also said that, Helinski's supposed to start, but, if we lose Helinski again at the quarterback position and we're left with Joyner as the backup, we're going to have some issues. And, I want nothing but the best for South Carolina as a South Carolina fan. But I think anybody at this point who comes out thinking that we're just going to dominate, I hate to break it to you, I just don't see it. I don't see the team that most of you guys are jumping on the bandwagon for. We're 3-3. And, every game for Muschamp from this point on, he's on a hot seat. And I know a couple of our viewers on YouTube have sat here and said, "Well, I bet you're regretting your words now." No, I don't regret them because I think we lose to Florida. I think we lose to Tennessee. I know we lose to Clemson. I think Appalachian State's going to be our only victory. I really do. If we're lucky to pull a victory off on Vanderbilt, so be it. If we're lucky to pull off a victory with the Florida Gators, so be it. But the truth is, if we sit here and you look at it from the reality side of the world and not la-la land of, we beat Georgia, we're a great team. Because we're not. We barely beat Georgia. It was Georgia who couldn't move their offense because our secondary showed up and our defense showed up. Had it not been for Jake Bentley's performance in the first half, we would have gone nowhere. Because Florida was able to move the ball. We were able to stop them several times. South Carolina, when Helinski got injured and was out, wasn't able to do anything with it. And, as much as, every South Carolina fan wants to sit here and say, we did so well. We did so well. We're such a great team. I'm going to sit here and remind you that, the simple truth is, you didn't do so well. We're not that great of a team. If we were a great team, there was 4 different times in the second half we should have had touchdowns, and we didn't because we couldn't move the ball. And, the football gods were shining upon the South Carolina Gamecocks, and no matter how many chances we got, field goal-wise, we still couldn't come up with what we needed to win. I think the only reason we won against Georgia was Georgia just forgot to show up. Georgia never got home in their heads last week. I think Florida, who just came off of a bad LSU loss, who has something to prove to say that they should still be in the top 10, who's at number 9 right now, is going to come in and beat up on the South Carolina Gamecocks like a high schooler would on a junior high kid. I think this is going to be a rough weekend. And for any South Carolina fan that's sitting there, with his fingers crossed, wearing his best Garnet t-shirt, his best Garnet hat, his, most dapper outfit that he has, I hate to sit here and say maybe show up just wearing a t-shirt and a hat. This may not be the game that you want to put all over Facebook, YouTube. This might be a game that you just sit there and go, we'll see how it goes. Have fun, root for the Gamecocks. I'm going to root for them. That's my team. I love them to death, but I'm not so naive to think that we're coming away with a win. It's going to be a rough game. If you'd like to sponsor Leroy Brown Talk Show, you can do so by contacting us on email at leroybrowntalkshow@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us at Leroy Brown Talk Show on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We have the Leroy Brown website at www.leroybrowntalkshow.com. It's always a pleasure to talk about Gamecock football and college football. If you guys would like to ask me questions about scores or where I think we're going to be sure to put those messages in our inbox. If you'd like to know anything about military news or military movement, be sure to ask me, and I'll answer in the best way that I can as well. Tomorrow we will cover Georgia football's program. We'll also cover some Clemson football for Friday, but I wanted to give Thursday a good push for Gamecock analysis. Thank you for tuning in to the Leroy Brown Talk Show. As always, if your main chute doesn't deploy, remember you have your reserve on standby. Bye-bye.